The Gulf War, a conflict that erupted in the early 1990s, capturing the attention of the entire world. A conflict etched in the annals of history. It was a war that showcased the might of modern military technology and the complexities of international diplomacy. A war fought in the scorching sands of the Middle East. The harsh desert environment added another layer of challenge for the soldiers who braved the extreme conditions. From August 1990 to February 1991, the world watched as a coalition of nations led by the United States confronted the aggression of Saddam Hussein's Iraq. This coalition was a diverse assembly of countries united by a common goal. This was Operation Desert Storm, a war that would reshape the geopolitical landscape and leave an indelible mark on the Middle East. The operation was a display of overwhelming force, precision, and coordination. The Gulf War was about more than just territory. It was a conflict that had deep-rooted implications for regional stability and global power dynamics. It was about oil, a vital resource that fueled the global economy. The control of oil reserves was a significant factor that influenced the strategies and decisions of the involved nations. It was about international law and the principle of collective security. The United Nations played a crucial role in legitimizing the coalition's actions and ensuring that the aggression was met with a unified response. It was about the ambition of one man, Saddam Hussein, and the consequences of his actions. His invasion of Kuwait set off a chain of events that would lead to a significant military confrontation and alter the course of history. The aftermath of the Gulf War saw efforts to rebuild and recover from the devastation. The war left a lasting impact on the region, with long-term consequences that are still felt today. The global reaction to the Gulf War was mixed, with widespread media coverage and varying public opinions. It was a conflict that not only shaped the Middle East but also influenced international relations and military strategies for years to come. By the late 1980s, Iraq found itself mired in debt, the legacy of its long and bloody war with Iran. Saddam Hussein, Iraq's ruthless dictator, cast a covetous eye on his tiny, oil-rich neighbor Kuwait. He accused Kuwait of stealing Iraqi oil and exceeding OPEC quotas, driving down oil prices. On August 2, 1990, Iraqi forces stormed across the border, swiftly overrunning Kuwait's ill-prepared defenses. The world was stunned. A sovereign nation had been swallowed whole in a matter of hours. Hussein declared Kuwait to be Iraq's 19th province, attempting to legitimize his naked aggression. The international community condemned the invasion in no uncertain terms. The United Nations Security Council passed Resolution 660, demanding Iraq's immediate and unconditional withdrawal from Kuwait. Economic sanctions were imposed, crippling Iraq's economy. The United States, under President George H.W. Bush, took the lead in forming a multinational coalition to confront Iraq. Troops, ships, and aircraft poured into the region, determined to liberate Kuwait and contain Saddam Hussein's aggression. Operation Desert Shield, the buildup of coalition forces in Saudi Arabia and the Persian Gulf, began in August 1990. Hundreds of thousands of troops from over 30 countries, equipped with the most advanced weaponry, stood ready to defend Saudi Arabia and prepare for a possible offensive against Iraq. The world held its breath. Diplomatic efforts continued in a desperate attempt to find a peaceful solution, but Saddam Hussein, emboldened by his conquest of Kuwait, remained defiant. Section 5. Operation Desert Storm, unfurling the banner of war. With diplomacy exhausted, the coalition launched Operation Desert Storm on January 17, 1991. A massive air campaign, led by the United States Air Force, rained down destruction on Iraqi military targets. Command and control centers, airfields, and supply lines were obliterated. The Iraqi Air Force, once the pride of the Arab world, was decimated within days. The coalition's technological superiority was evident. Precision-guided munitions struck their targets with deadly accuracy, minimizing civilian casualties. Section 6. The Ground Invasion, a swift and decisive victory. On February 24, 1991, the ground invasion began. Coalition forces, spearheaded by the U.S. Army and Marine Corps, surged into Kuwait and southern Iraq. The Iraqi army, demoralized and outmatched, put up fierce but ultimately futile resistance. The ground war was over in just 100 hours. Kuwait was liberated and Iraqi forces were driven back across the border. The coalition had achieved a stunning victory, but at a cost. Thousands of Iraqi soldiers lay dead, and the country's infrastructure was in ruins. Section 7. The Aftermath. Picking up the pieces. In the aftermath of the war, Iraq was subjected to strict UN sanctions and weapons inspections. No-fly zones were established over northern and southern Iraq to protect Kurdish and Shia populations from Saddam Hussein's brutal regime. The war had a profound impact on the Middle East. It solidified the United States' position as the dominant military power in the region. It also sowed the seeds of future conflict, as resentment festered in Iraq and extremist groups, such as Al-Qaeda, exploited the chaos and instability. Section 8. A Legacy of Conflict, the Long Shadow of War. The Gulf War was a watershed moment in international relations. It marked a significant shift in how the world viewed collective security and international cooperation. The conflict, which began in August 1990 when Iraq invaded Kuwait, quickly escalated into a global crisis. Nations from around the world came together to form a coalition, united by a common goal: to repel Iraqi forces and restore peace in the region. This unprecedented level of international collaboration set a new standard for future conflicts. It demonstrated the effectiveness of collective security in the post-Cold War era. The coalition forces, comprising troops from over 30 countries, showcased the power of unity and shared purpose. The swift and decisive military action taken by the coalition not only liberated Kuwait, but also sent a clear message to the world. Aggression would not be tolerated, and the international community would stand together to uphold peace and security. The UN Security Council, no longer paralyzed by superpower rivalry, played a decisive role in condemning aggression and authorizing the use of force. For the first time in decades, the Security Council was able to act swiftly and decisively, thanks to the end of the Cold War and the newfound cooperation between former adversaries. This marked a turning point in the role of the United Nations in maintaining global peace and security. However, the war also highlighted the limitations of military victory. While the coalition forces were able to achieve their immediate objectives, the long-term consequences of the conflict were far more complex. The destruction left in the wake of the war had a profound impact on the region, leading to widespread suffering and displacement. The images of devastation in Kuwait served as a stark reminder of the human cost of war. While Saddam Hussein had been defeated, he remained in power, a continuing threat to regional stability. The decision not to remove him from power would have far-reaching implications for the future of the Middle East. Saddam's regime continued to oppress the Iraqi people and pose a threat to neighboring countries, leading to ongoing tensions and conflicts in the region. The legacy of the Gulf War would continue to shape the Middle East for decades to come, leading to further conflict and instability. The war set the stage for future interventions and conflicts in the region, as the international community grappled with the challenges of maintaining peace and stability in a volatile and complex environment. The long shadow of the Gulf War serves as a reminder of the enduring impact of conflict and the importance of striving for lasting peace. Section 9. Gulf War. Illness, the unseen wounds of war. In the years following the Gulf War, a disturbing trend emerged. Veterans who had bravely served their country began to experience a range of health issues that were not immediately apparent. These issues were not the visible scars of battle, but rather hidden wounds that affected their daily lives in profound ways. Thousands of veterans began to report a range of debilitating symptoms: chronic fatigue, muscle pain, cognitive problems, and a host of other ailments. These symptoms were often severe and persistent, making it difficult for veterans to return to their normal lives. The medical community was initially baffled by these reports. The symptoms were varied and did not fit neatly into any known medical condition. This led to a great deal of frustration and confusion among both veterans and healthcare providers. This collection of symptoms eventually became known as Gulf War illness. It was a term that encompassed the wide range of health issues faced by veterans of the Gulf War. The recognition of Gulf War illness was a crucial step in acknowledging the struggles of these veterans. The causes of Gulf War illness are complex and not fully understood. Exposure to chemical weapons, pesticides, and other toxins during the war is believed to have played a role. These substances could have had long-term effects on the health of those who were exposed to them. The exact mechanisms by which these exposures lead to the symptoms of Gulf War illness are still being studied. Researchers are exploring a variety of potential pathways, including the impact of these toxins on the nervous system and immune system. The Department of Veterans Affairs continues to research Gulf War illness, seeking to understand its causes and provide effective treatment to those who serve their country. This research is vital for developing new therapies and improving the quality of life for affected veterans. The journey to fully understand Gulf War illness is ongoing. It requires a concerted effort from researchers, healthcare providers, and policymakers. By continuing to investigate and address this condition, we honor the sacrifices of those who served and ensure they receive the care and support they deserve.